What if everything you were taught about love was designed to enslave you? What if marriage was not the peak of intimacy, but the death of it? Most men today are waking up to a silent truth that has been ignored for centuries. The idea that marriage will fulfill you, complete you, or bring lasting happiness is breaking down under the weight of lived experience. Behind the wedding photos, the vows, and the rings lies something darker. It is not just disappointment. It is betrayal. The same system that tells men to be loyal, patient, and strong is the one that rewards their silence with loss of freedom, financial risk, and emotional neglect. Schopenhauer saw it long before the modern divorce courts and family law systems. He saw that romantic love is not sacred. It is strategic. Nature uses it to achieve its goal, which is reproduction, not your peace. And the modern man is beginning to see through the script. Today, more men than ever are choosing to stay single, and not because they fear commitment, but because they understand its cost. They see friends drained by alimony. They see fathers alienated from their children. They see passion turned into duty and love turned into leverage. This is not bitterness. This is awareness. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Schopenhauer understood that love was not an ideal. It was instinct, and instinct has no morality. It does not care about your dreams or your future. It only cares that you mate, submit, and serve the continuation of life. The question is not whether marriage works. The question is who it works for. This is not a script about avoiding love. It is about seeing it without the blindfold, and once you do, everything changes. Most men believe they are choosing love. They believe they are entering relationships through their own free will. But what they call freedom is often programming. They do not choose love. Love chooses them. It enters like a storm and convinces them it is their own decision. But behind the rush of feelings, the intense attraction, and the fantasy of permanence lies a deeper truth. What they call love is a biological trap. It is designed to make them act without thinking. Nature does not want men to be wise. It wants them to be useful. It wants them to chase, to provide, and to protect without asking who benefits. And so it gives them the illusion of choice. It rewards them with moments of pleasure to blind them from the long-term cost. That cost does not come all at once. It comes slowly, first as responsibility, then as sacrifice, then as silence. Schopenhauer saw it clearly. He wrote that love is not romantic. It is reproductive. It is not a feeling that uplifts. It is a force that binds. It binds men to women, not for connection, but for nature's goal. That goal is not your peace. It is your submission. The modern man believes he is choosing a partner, but often he is walking into a system designed to extract his time, his energy, and his future. He is not choosing. He is reacting, and every reaction makes him easier to control. The illusion of choice keeps him hopeful, while the structure takes more of him. He thinks he is building a life, but what he is often building is a prison. Not with bars, but with vows. Not with guards, but with expectations. And once he is inside, the door closes silently behind him. A man thinks marriage is a personal promise. He believes it is a mutual agreement between two people who love each other. But in reality, marriage is a legal contract. It is not written in the language of love. It is written in the language of the state. And once you enter it, you are not just bound to a person, you are bound to a system. That system does not care about your feelings. It does not care how much you love or how hard you try. It only cares about enforcement. Marriage is not about connection. It is about compliance. And the law will remind you of that the moment things fall apart. Because when the love fades, the system stays. And it does not leave room for negotiation. It only has rules. Many men discover too late that they signed something they did not understand. They thought they were making a promise of loyalty, But what they really signed was a financial obligation. It is not about emotion. It is about assets. It is about income. It is about long-term sacrifice, backed by legal power. You can leave the woman, but you cannot leave the state. You can walk out of the house, but the consequences will follow you. Your wages, your savings, your future plans, all become subject to an agreement you never fully read. And no one told you the full truth before you signed it, because it is not in the interest of the system to warn you. It only needs your consent. And once you give it, you lose the right to say you did not know. In the eyes of the law, your signature is enough. Whether you understood it or not, no longer matters. A man is told that marriage is the next step. He is told it is the path to maturity. But what no one tells him is what he loses in the process. He loses freedom in every sense. He loses the right to walk away without penalty. He loses the ability to make decisions without permission. He no longer answers only to himself. He becomes part of a structure where his choices are no longer his own. Every financial move becomes shared. Every personal decision becomes a negotiation. The man who once owned his life now rents it in pieces. And the price is not just money, it is control. Once he signs, he is not just a husband. He becomes accountable to an invisible judge who never sleeps and never forgets. This shift is never announced. It does not happen all at once. It begins quietly. A voice that used to say yes now says, "Why?" A plan that used to be yours now needs approval. You used to move when you wanted. Now every step must be explained. Every risk must be justified. Every hour must be accounted for. Your time is no longer yours. Your goals must fit inside someone else's comfort zone. Your vision must shrink to make room for someone else's fears. And if you push back, you are told you are selfish. You are told you need to grow up. But maturity was never the problem. The problem was that your independence became a threat, because control thrives where one man doubts himself. And marriage does not need to dominate you with force. It only needs to convince you that your freedom is a danger to the peace. And most men give it up before they even notice it is gone. A man enters marriage thinking he is choosing love. But he is not choosing love. He is choosing duty. He is choosing routine. He is choosing a contract that turns desire into obligation. What once felt spontaneous now becomes scheduled. What once drew him in now weighs him down. The woman he pursued is no longer the mystery. She becomes the structure. And the man who used to chase is now the one being chased by expectations. He begins to notice that love is no longer given freely. It is measured. It is conditional. It depends on how useful he is, on how compliant he is, on how much of himself he is willing to give up to maintain peace. In this world, love is not about connection. It becomes a currency. He buys silence with compromise. He buys affection with sacrifice. And the more he pays, the more is expected. He learns quickly that love is not owed to him. It is something he must earn over and over, even when he is exhausted, even when he is empty. And when he finally breaks, he is told that real men never do, that real men just keep going. But love was never the problem. The illusion of love was. The idea that love would sustain itself without cost. The idea that love could survive inside a structure built on silent resentment. This is the truth no one tells him. That the love he thought he had is not what will remain. What remains is an agreement. And agreements do not forgive. They do not adapt. They do not care about what is felt. They only care about what is delivered. And when a man sees that love has been replaced by performance, he begins to understand what he signed up for. He thought becoming a father would give him meaning, but it only gave him responsibility. Not shared responsibility, full responsibility. The moment the child is born, he is no longer a man. He becomes a role. He becomes the provider. He becomes the one who must always show up, no matter how much he is breaking inside. He cannot complain, he cannot rest, and he definitely cannot speak about how invisible he feels. Because if he does, he is weak. He is selfish. He is not a good man. So he keeps quiet. He works. He pays. He sacrifices. And somewhere in the background, his identity fades. The man he used to be is no longer welcome. There is no place for his pain. There is no room for his story. Because everyone assumes that fatherhood is the reward. No one asks what it costs him. And when he tries to parent, he is reminded of his limits. His voice does not carry the same weight. His authority is not protected. If he disagrees, he is accused of being too harsh. If he withdraws, he is called absent. But if he speaks, he is ignored. He watches as decisions are made without him. He sees how his role is reduced to funding and fixing. He is there, but not really there. Present, but not included. He watches his child grow up in a system that pretends he matters, but only when it is convenient. And if he ever walks away, the world points fingers. They say he failed. They say he gave up. But no one wonders what it feels like to be erased from your own family. No one asks what happens to a man who gives everything and still ends up as the outsider in his own home. He does not want to touch her anymore, but he cannot say why. It is not just boredom. It is not just stress. It is something deeper, something heavier. It is the slow death of attraction in a world where intimacy has become a transaction. He used to feel something when she looked at him. Now he feels nothing. Not because he found someone else, not because he stopped being a man, but because he has been slowly drained of his freedom, drained of his energy, drained of his desire by a system that confuses duty with love. When every touch comes with a condition, when every embrace feels like a test, when sex becomes a performance and not a connection, the body reacts. It shuts down, and he begins to see her not as a lover, but as another obligation, another voice that wants more from him when there is nothing left to give. She notices the distance, but does not understand it. She thinks he is cold. She thinks he is distant. She thinks he is broken. But she never asks what changed. He used to desire her when desire was allowed to be free, when he could be himself without judgment, when he was touched not because he earned it, but because he was wanted. Now, every glance is loaded, every word is filtered, every moment is scheduled. There is no space for rawness, no room for spontaneity, and slowly, without meaning to, he begins to withdraw, not to hurt her, not to punish her, but to protect what is left of him. And when she finally confronts him, he cannot explain it, because he does not know how to say that intimacy is not something you owe. It is something that only grows where freedom still exists. He did not realize it at first, but the moment the child was born, something in the relationship shifted. What was once about two people became about control, not of love, not of care, but of leverage. The child was no longer just a life they brought into the world. The child became a shield, a currency, a bargaining chip. Arguments no longer ended with truth. They ended with threats. If he did not comply, he would lose access. If he did not obey, he would be called unstable. She never had to say it out loud. The system had already built that threat into her hands, and he knew it. Because every man knows that once a child exists, his freedom can be erased with a signature. She could leave and take the child. She could speak and be believed. He could speak and be doubted. And once that happens, nothing feels safe anymore. He still tries. He still shows up. He still pays. But none of that protects him from the fear that one mistake, one accusation, one misunderstanding can erase everything. He becomes careful, not for love, not for the child, but for survival. He starts measuring his words. He starts second-guessing his tone. And the home becomes a silent war zone where one side holds the power of law and the other lives in quiet compliance. He cannot leave without consequences. He cannot argue without risk. So he becomes small. He becomes passive. Not because he is weak, but because he is trapped. And when people say he should fight for his child, they forget that fighting means losing either way. Because once the child is used to control the man, it is no longer family. It is a prison with a crib. He believed love would bring him peace. That once he found the right woman, the chaos would end. He thought commitment would silence the noise, that a home would protect him from the world. But he was wrong. Not because he chose poorly, but because he believed the illusion. He thought stability came from shared feelings. He thought loyalty meant permanence. He mistook comfort for safety. In the beginning, it feels like control. It feels like certainty. You believe someone is choosing you because you matter. You do not realize they are choosing you because you are useful. Love becomes a transaction masked as devotion. The moment you stop meeting needs, the moment you stop performing, the illusion cracks. And in that crack, you see the truth. You were never loved. You were only needed. And once you stop being needed, you are no longer loved. What most men do not understand is that the comfort they seek is conditional. It is not built on truth. It is built on fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of failure. Fear of irrelevance. So they keep investing. They keep building. They keep believing. They confuse emotional labor with emotional loyalty. But the moment he breaks down, the moment he cannot provide, the same system that sold him the dream leaves him behind. She does not stay. She recalibrates. She adapts. She tells herself a story that makes her feel innocent. And he is left to watch his life shift without warning. No court defends his heartbreak. No friend comforts his confusion. He is expected to move on. He is expected to rebuild. But deep down, something broke that does not heal. Because he realizes security was never real. It was a contract. And that contract had no protection for the man. He told himself that giving in was maturity, that silence was wisdom, that keeping the peace was love. What he did not see was that every compromise he made chipped away at something essential. At first, it was small. He stopped speaking his mind. He avoided confrontation. He chose comfort over clarity. But slowly, he began to vanish. He became agreeable. He became convenient. He learned which truths were too risky to say, and which parts of himself were better off hidden. Not because she asked him to, but because the world trained him to believe that his peace did not matter if it threatened hers, that his honesty was dangerous if it disrupted her emotions. So he softened. He adjusted. He swallowed it all until there was nothing left to speak. But there comes a moment where the silence becomes louder than any argument, when the man who used to question everything no longer speaks at all. He lives, but he does not exist. He moves through the motions, but there is no edge, no force, no presence. And people around him say he is stable, that he is responsible, that he is dependable. But the truth is, he is defeated. He gave up on his own clarity to maintain a bond that demands his obedience. And what is worse is that she no longer respects him for it. The more he avoids conflict, the more she tests him. The more he folds, the more she pulls away. She senses his weakness, not as kindness, but as fear. And fear is never attractive So the very thing he gave up his power to preserve becomes the very thing that crumbles in front of him. Because no woman ever truly desires the man who abandons himself to keep her calm. Most men do not walk into a cage. They build it. Slowly, carefully. They lay down every bar with the illusion that they are designing a life, a home, a future. But what they are really building is a prison made of good intentions and delayed resentment. They tell themselves that stability is the goal, that a routine is peace, that predictability means safety. But what they lose in the process is not chaos. It is their edge, their risk, their hunger. They start to live according to schedules, plans, and expectations that do not belong to them. They work jobs they do not care about, to pay for things they never wanted, for people who stopped seeing them years ago. They trade vitality for control, and then call it responsibility. What makes this trap so dangerous is that it rewards them with the appearance of success. There is a house, there is a car, there is a title, there is a woman. But behind all of it is a man who no longer remembers what he wanted before all this began. He avoids the question because he is afraid of the answer. He knows that if he digs deep enough, he will find a version of himself that is not compatible with the life he built. So he keeps the volume down. He tells himself he is being mature. But underneath that story is a growing silence, not the kind that comes from peace, but the kind that signals absence. A life that does not reflect his own reflection. A man who is praised for his reliability, but forgotten for his truth. Because no one asks where he went. They only care that he shows up. And he always does. Until one day, he doesn't. You never see it when it happens. It is not loud. It does not break anything. There is no scene, no dramatic collapse, just a quiet transaction between a man and the world. A silent agreement where he begins to trade parts of himself for approval. He starts small. He drops a truth, swallows a need, adjusts his tone. He tells himself it is just for now. He thinks he is adapting. But the world keeps asking. It wants more. It always wants more. And somewhere between trying to be the good man, the patient one, the steady one, he forgets how to be himself. He smiles when he does not mean it. He agrees when his body says no. And by the time he realizes what it cost, no one remembers what he was like before he gave it all away. Modern culture calls it emotional intelligence, maturity, growth. But most of what is praised as development is just submission dressed as progress. Men are told to feel more, talk more, bend more, but nobody asks if they are becoming better or just more manageable. They are shaped into versions that fit, but never versions that lead. And because there is comfort in being liked, they stay there, numb, passive, cut off from the core that once made them unpredictable and real. The edge is gone, not because it was dangerous, but because it made others uncomfortable. And now what remains is a man who is safe, but not respected, heard, but not followed, present, but not alive. At some point, every man must look in the mirror and ask what he gave up just to be accepted. And if you gave up everything that made you different, then what exactly did they love?